The course of every intellectual, if he pursues his journey long and unflinchingly enough, ends in the obvious, from which the non-intellectuals have ever stirred. You've heard me use the quote before. It's one of my favorites. It's from pioneering psychonaut and dystopian fiction author Aldous Huxley. The premise remains solid. Even if you are of an intellectual bent, and I should say for the record that I consider myself a complete non-intellectual, once you've gone through the gymnastics and you've rolled out the yoga mats, eventually you do end in the obvious. And any attempts to complicate it further are simply an act of your own consciousness. This is investigative reporter Danny Casolaro. In 1991, he was studying a conspiracy involving the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, a number of international arms dealers, including Adnan Khashoggi, and tying it all into what he referred to as the octopus. He went to Martinsburg, West Virginia to meet a contact, a very important contact, it was said, and told his family not to believe an accident. Considering his end, I guess we'll have no choice but to believe it wasn't an accident. He died, having slashed both wrists, let me say that again, both wrists through all the way to the bone, severing tendons on both sides. Now, this was documented later on after his death in a book called Octopus. Now, you will note one of the authors of Octopus, Jim Keith. Jim Keith was another investigative reporter who dealt heavily in conspiracy theories. In fact, if you want to look at Mr. Keith, there he is with one of his books, and I should point out that I have every single one of Jim Keith's works in my collection. Black helicopters, government conspiracies, UFO cover-ups, all sorts of things like that, including this hard-to-find volume, Secret and Suppressed, Banned Ideas and Hidden History. Good luck finding a first edition copy of this, but I have one on my shelf. I'm very impressed with the work of Jim Keith. I'd be even more impressed if Mr. Keith were still drawing breath. You see, he died under general anesthesia in a very routine surgery after twisting his ankle falling off a stage at Burning Man. He begged the doctors not to let the anesthesiologist put him under. He did not want the surgery. The person who had attended the emergency room with him left, and by the time he got back, he had already been put under and was already quite dead. That was Jim Keith, the guy who wrote the book about this guy and this conspiracy, right? Now, here's the thing about the publishers of this book and this gentleman and this book. It's guy by the name of Adam Parfrey. If you guys are familiar with underground press at all, you know that Adam Parfrey was, operative word being was, no less than a legend. He dealt with stuff that nobody else would deal with, including things like octopus conspiracies and black helicopters and banned ideas and hidden history, and a book that was crucial to my emergence into higher consciousness, a book called Apocalypse Culture. I've still got a first edition copy of that. He also published this one, Oklahoma City Bombing and the Politics of Terror. This is literally a book that is banned, and I don't mean de facto banned or shadow banned, I mean banned. It went out, the government declared that it contained classified information, ordered that all copies be returned to the publisher and destroyed. There are a few of them floating out there still. Adam Parfrey was quite impressed when we chatted about it because most of them had been pulled, and I still have a copy on my shelf. I was planning on getting the man's autograph, but unfortunately, just a couple months after that chat and before I could make it across the pass to meet him, Mr. Keith died of a series of strokes. No family history of strokes, no prior warning conditions, just died of a series of strokes. I've still bookmarked that chat to this day in my Facebook chats, and one of the few regrets that I have in life is that I didn't make it across the pass to meet Mr. Parfrey, but I digress. In light of all these things, the death of Danny Casolaro, the death of Jim Keith, and only slightly less suspicious circumstances, the death of Adam Parfrey. Imagine my surprise when, oh my goodness, only 30-odd years after the fact, Netflix decides that they are going to put their own spin on the octopus thing. Now, as an old school conspiracy theorist, as one of the old heads in this game, the temptation is certainly there for me to get upset at the prospect of anyone trying to bring it this late after the fact. It would be very easy for me to fall into the hole of hating on these guys that are doing it. Who the hell are these young bucks anyway, etc., etc. These are the two young bucks in question, and they were actually friends with someone who was following up on the death of Danny Casolaro. I don't hate on these kids. I don't even hate on Netflix for putting it out. I don't even hate on a public that is only ready to accept a horrible truth about a horrible event 30 odd years after the event in question. Why? Because it's already too thick with fog. What am I saying? I'm saying that the entire essence of this, more or less, is gaslighting. Tracy Malone. Gaslighting is mind control to make victims doubt their reality. Now, MK Ultra and some of the other things that were covered by, a lot of this guy's books and a lot of this guy's works, and eventually would have been dealt with by Mr. Casolaro had he lived, deal with the art and science of mind control, rooted firmly in the MK Ultra and Delta and Google, and most effective mind control now for the masses is gaslighting. By the way, folks, gaslighting doesn't really exist. You're just crazy. That's the essence of it. You convince an entire populace that they can no longer trust their own mind. You sow the seeds not only of discontent, but of distrust and confusion. And maybe after long enough, nobody knows who's telling them the truth anymore. Some people dig deep. Some people expose things that other powered and moneyed interests don't want exposed. But who is really a groundbreaker and who is just controlled opposition? Who defines what makes one controlled opposition? What about this man? Plenty of theories floating around out there. He was one of the early and most high profile of the quote unquote tinfoil hat crowd. But now, popular wisdom, even among conspiracy buffs, is that Alex Jones is controlled opposition, and that may very well be true. But if guilt by association is still a factor, well, then that guy on the left holding the other side of that Gadsden flag from Mr. Jones, what's stopping you from believing that he is controlled opposition? Those of you not familiar, that's the voice you're listening to right now. And that was myself and Mr. Jones years and years ago. Do we take that he is controlled opposition? And if one can be made to believe that Jones is controlled opposition, then what keeps one from making one believe that this man is controlled opposition? Hasn't he had guests on and given platforms to people that were otherwise untouchable? So is he the genuine item, or is he just part of the program? Such accusations have been leveled at this man as well, Tucker Carlson, a man who I once hated, and not without good reason. During the Bush administration, particularly the first half of the first Bush administration, 2000 to 2004, this man was a neocon shill, and he pushed it. Is he controlled opposition then? Is he controlled opposition now? Did he have a genuine change of heart? How would we document if he had a change of heart? And is that change of heart as genuine, or is that what we were expected to believe? And even this man, that's right, Elon himself, when he bought Twitter, did he buy Twitter with the intent of freeing up speech, or is that how we're supposed to see it? Is there any way to know? Of course not. One can only look at the interest behind each of those causes and make that determination for oneself, leaping to a conclusion based on incomplete evidence. Some might call that faith. Remember the interest behind all of these moneyed and powered entities. Those who can be made to believe absurdities can be made to commit atrocities. Are you even in control of your own mind anymore. We've put that to the test here a couple of times, and a number of you have failed. That is not to disparage you. That is saying no one is exempt, not even the voice to which you are paying attention. I can get taken in just as easily as anyone else. We all have our weaknesses, and nothing can be certain. He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. Perhaps that 30-year gap was a decent temporal disparity for us to readjust our sensors. In 1991, they were not ready to hear it. No matter how much I shouted it from the rooftops, no one was ready to hear it. But now we've got to take control of the narrative. We've got to control the past if we want to control our own present. And we definitely have to take control now. We don't have all the evidence. We don't have all the proof. Sometimes maybe it's a necessity to take things on faith. And sometimes the decisions you make based on faith turn out to be the ones that save your very soul. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and since I start with a new one tomorrow, certainly not employers for all you dox-happy Antifa maggots out there. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to stretch open that maw and choke you with truth cock, black latex glove, and a fistful of truth, boys and girls. It is time, once again, for the Sunday sermon. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but you know, it's just me, and I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. We're going to get into all of it, boys, but right now, I want to see where the energy is. Come on for the drum roll. Ah, man, it may be the Sunday of Thomas, but I am feeling a little bit like Moses because I'm out here in the desert and I'm trying to bring my people to the promised land. Man, I really appreciate you guys that hung out through all of those starts and restarts. I don't know what was going on, but apparently it was on StreamYard's end. Wish I could have done something to prevent that or at least alleviate it. I was incapable, but we finally got it rolling, and we're probably going to be clipping in and out. If it clips again, I'm done. Just letting you know. If it totally clips again, I'm done. But I'm going to hang in here to try to tolerate the sputtering and the max headroom treatment that we're getting on. As we always do, we come hard charging out of the starting gate with Red Desert. Older, no wiser. The name of the band is Red Desert, gut stomping rock and roll band from the smoldering embers and ruins of the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the song is Older, No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. This week, gotta be honest with you, probably kind of a coin toss. I'm going to do a roll call real quick, see which one of you guys hung out, man. Brother Clem, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you, brother. And Brian, oh, that rabbit hole. Shame on you for that, man. Twisted my little head up, man, and I've got a head full of kratom on a long road trip. Why would you do that to me? Because that's how we dance, baby. I love you for that, Ryan. Thank you so much. This is the episode where we discuss Galilean relativity, shows that nothing can be absolute resistance. Zeno's arrow shows nothing can be shown to move. Don't forget, you first got to go half the distance, then half the distance, then half of that distance. So eventually you can never arrive. Yeah, Zeno. I did a little bit of reading on that. You still got me, bro. You still got me. Brother James Pearson, the chief, happy belated birthday from all of us who missed the post that I put up on Facebook when it happened. No, Cooper, behold the pale horse. Dude, we're going to get into all of that stuff, man, but I can only squeeze so much into the opener. Ah, yes, Carrie, thank you for being here, man. And, of course, Roman, I know you're hiding in the background somewhere. Brother Sonny on board with the entire family. Mwah. I so much appreciate y'all, man. And I love that post earlier. Guys, I reposted it. I'm giving them another shout out here in a little bit, man. The doubt, the Sunday of Thomas, and the essay that Brother Sonny just published on doubt. You guys need to take a look at that. man, it's super heavy and it's super hard. The mighty, mighty Stone woke up in time to catch the sermon. Well, actually, I'm running a little bit late, and that might have worked out well. Brother Doug, good evening, brother. Rough start to the sermon. Look forward to hearing the message tonight. It's gonna be interesting, man. I'm just kind of going with it, just sort of rolling with it. And of course, brother Kendall Clay, still down there in the swamp country, wrestling gators oh, so you're out on. Okay, right on, man, right on. Me and Kendall go way back, man, like all the way back to man. We had a warehouse space back in the days where there was nothing down in the warehouse district but dope fiends and drag queens, baby. Oh, what amazing days those were. Gunplay right across the freeway from the wards. It was always a good time, man. Always a good time. Thank you. Thank you all for following and staying with it. Yes, indeed. There she is, the OG Sinner Sister herself, the divine Miss Emmy. Good to see you, sweetheart. And Bill Wade. Thank you, Brother Bill. And I do, man. I really do appreciate that. Look who's back, man. 2 weeks in a row. Lovely lady. Good to see you back again. Deacon Mark with his lovely wife. Oh, that's what you meant by all four. Cool. So we got Deacon Mark and Ida and Sonny and Megan. Completion, man. Completion. I feel it now. All right. Now we're communicating. And of course, OG, Reverence Ranger, and Prophet of Doom, Mr. Dennis Weimer, the man responsible for introducing me to the glories of the Pacific Northwest, set my life up in a whole different direction. I got a lot of touchstones that are here for the show that have been those touchstones in my life and set things in different directions, and it's wonderful. And as Ryan was saying, man, I really do appreciate all of you guys that hung out with all those false starts. I'm still not sure exactly what was going on with that because, I did some test firing early today. I'm out here in a new place. I'll get into all that, man. We're going to go ahead and fade this bumper music out. Again, guys, Red Desert from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Older No Wiser is the name of the track. But that whole album is some gut stomping rock and roll, man. And you got to admit, their title track is a freaking jam. I love those guys. And they have been cool enough to let me use that music without any kind of copyright arrangement or anything like that. I hit them up. I sent them a couple of copies of the podcast and was like, hey, I do a lot of political stuff here. And if any of this is going to be detrimental to y'all, then I'll pull it and I'll use something different. They were like, nah, man, roll with it. So I was like, cool. So they've been cool enough to let me use that, and it's a wonderful thing. What's that? Bill Nye makes Neil deGrasse Tyson look smart. Yeah, Dennis, I got your message, man, and I'm looking forward to seeing you up there. Bill Nye called and said he wanted to see. This is what I love, man. Just going back through and looking at the chats that take place over off here to the side. So, catching you guys up to speed. Let me get the sponsor shout outs real quick, and then we will jump right into it. I'll catch you guys up to speed and explain what is going on, why we got a different background, all the things that are going on around here, and then we will jump right into the meat of it. Um, First of all, Roman, dear friend of mine. We go all the way back to 1988. Bart Rock and the Hammerskin Show. Not quite, not quite. I mean, yeah, they adopted it, but yeah, maybe, maybe. That's a good eye, son. I like that. I mean, especially for a couple of guys that've never been exposed to that kind of stuff, right? Sometimes I throw stuff out just to see who's paying attention. It's the same way you do to me, man. Try to distract me and get me off my game. Anyway, guys, Roman, dear friend of mine, goes all the way back to 1988, and his lovely wife, Carrie, and Roxy and Allie and all the beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. He's doing some great watercolor work. He's always been one of my most creative. Yeah, dude, just put up with the chop, man. If it totally cuts me off, then I'm out. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna hang as tough as humanly possible, and we're just gonna plow through it and do what we can. And I'll catch up with what's going on. Roman and Allie and Roxy and the bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. Beautiful watercolors of beautiful naked women. And testosterone-driven commentary on Planet Bart. That is a trifecta. And check out Roman Riva on Amazon, From Dork to Pimp Daddy. It basically encapsulates his old journey from just being regular Joe, ordinary, everyday working class schlub to being paid for the privilege of painting very beautiful women while they're naked. Pretty cool, pretty cool. So definitely check out the book, and also to Casey and Dusty Tellison, my Viking brothers, with NordicSmokeBarbecue.com. Check them out on all the social media platforms. NordicSmokeBarbecue.com, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest, period. End of statement, done. You got to check out their Facebook profile, and they will be keeping you guys up to date on when they will be out with the Viking Longship, which, of course, is their big smoker truck. Dusty, the pitmaster over there, and, of course, check out Casey's book as well, Casey Tellison. Freaks of a Feather. It's a memoir of a machine gunner in Iraq, and it's a memoir that started out as a suicide note. The man is a very gifted writer. And Sonny, because you were here, I should stand as testament that you are sitting with yourself and at least one other specimen that I've got a gift for spotting gifted writers. Yeah, I've got that. See, so so when I tell you somebody's a gifted writer, you should probably take it to heart. Anyway, Casey's definitely got the gift, and he will take you on a walk through his inner landscape in some places that you would probably wish that you had not visited, but it is a powerful piece of writing. Freaks of a Feather, Lake Top Press. Dennis, when you get up here, gonna give me some barbecue. Yes, sir. We are gonna get that squared away for sure, brother. It is gonna be a good time. I can't wait for you to come see me. So let's go ahead and jump off into, and I've been waiting for this one this week, our lead off segment, Ryan's Rabbit Hole, and let's test out the sound. You guys hear the thunderous roar of applause there? Can you guys hear that? Yeah? Imagine the thunderous roar of applause. Everybody cheering. Yes, thank you. And just sort of revel in the accolades. Accolades, not Everglades. Kendall, pay attention. Anyway, so this is always our leadoff segment, and it's one of our most popular segments. We started doing this back when I was in Nebraska, cutting my teeth on the wind farm and learning how to run cranes. Brother Ryan out there. One of the first things that Ryan and I bonded over is the fact that we both are repositories of useless information. And we tend to know a little something about damn near everything, owing to whether it was our dedication to research these topics or finding ourselves in situations where we had a lot of time on our hands and decided to spend that time researching these topics. Regardless of how we got there, and our brains are quite full, to the point where sometimes you tilt your head out to the side and little bits of knowledge will like drip out of our ears. I mean, that could be a ruptured eardrum too if we've been sparring. I can't really speak to that. But anyway, Ryan's Rabbit Hole was something we started doing when I was still up in Nebraska. And it's been part of the program almost from the jump, man. I think we were probably maybe 4 months into doing the sermon when we started doing the rabbit hole. And basically the purpose of the rabbit hole is to take you outside of your comfort zone, outside of your mainstream thinking, right? And basically take you to a place where you can expand your intellectual horizons a little bit, learn something that you might not have known before, get familiar with a historical figure or a historical event that you hadn't been previously familiarized with. Sometimes we go historical, sometimes we go conspiratorial, sometimes we go esoteric, and regardless of what it is, man, Ryan makes me freaking work for it. As a general rule, and this is not to puff my own pecker here, but as a general rule, I am one of the three smartest men in probably 96 out of every 100 rooms that I walk into. I mean, unless I'm attending a Jordan Peterson lecture or one of Sonny's classes, but Ryan makes me work for it, man. Ryan really makes me work for it, and that's another thing that Ryan and I have bonded over, because when you look at somebody like Ryan and you look at somebody like me, generally the first thought that pops into your head is not, man, I bet that guy's a deep intellect. That's just not how people look at it. So, and then we shock them. And I take great pleasure in shocking him. I always come back to that scene in Good Will Hunting where the guy's pontificating about stuff he knows nothing about, and Will just sort of walks up and clowns him because he knows the book better than this other guy does. That's Ryan. That's Ryan. So careful of getting into philosophical or theological discussions. um, but he will definitely keep it interesting, keep you entertained. This week's rabbit hole, and this is going to be something for you right here, is the Silurian hypothesis. That's right, Silurian, spelled like the particular geological era. Let me just spell it for you. Silurian, the Silurian hypothesis. Now, the word Silurian it was the shortest geological and evolutionary epoch of the planet as it was developing. That is the one definition. Silurian was also an ancient race of reptilian creatures in a Doctor Who episode. So you can tell the guys that came up with this are probably going to be a little on the nerdy side of things. But basically, the premise of the Silurian hypothesis is, and Graham Hancock, you know what? Because we're going to be discussing Mr. Hancock quite a bit over the course of this. Where is he at? Where is he at? There we go. Graham Hancock. Um, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. The Silurian hypothesis basically postulates that, and it's a thought experiment. Okay, I should say that right off the bat. Some people take it to heart, and I think there's a lot of wisdom to be gleaned from what these guys are postulating. But basically, what it says is that there has been enough carbon uh, over the development of this planet to have sustained advanced technological and industrial civilizations millions of years before we even showed up. Science has become a cult, has it not? Science has become its own religion, has it not? And they will tell you that we're 100%. They won't even tell you that they're 100% certain. But one could make a case for uh, that it could have happened, that there was enough carbon on the planet to fuel a technologically advanced, industrialized, highly evolved civilization millions of years before we ever showed up. Maybe they were from this planet, maybe they were not. And here's where the thought experiment gets interesting. And I'm just going to have you guys just Google Silurian hypothesis and just take it and run with it. There's going to be about 8 links, and all of them are bangers. All of them are going to, go ahead and pour yourself a big cup of coffee because you're going to be up late. But of the way, because of tectonic plate shifts, because of the vastness of surface area on our planet, the way that winds and glacial movements and massive flood events, these would not, the artifacts of these civilizations, and that's the sticking point when people want to push back against this. If there was a civilization like that, there would be some kind of artifact, right? Not necessarily. Okay, not necessarily so, because of all of these factors that we've discussed being in play. And these artifacts would have been buried, they would have been swept away, they would have been eroded, they would have dissolved. Any of these artifacts, if in fact this civilization existed that far back. Now, here's where it gets even more entertaining. There are people who postulate that this civilization, if it did in fact exist, and again, this is one of those where I'm like, I'm not 100% convinced that I believe it, but I damn sure think you could make a case for it. Actually, I'm going to put myself in about the 90th percentile on convinced. Maybe not that it had to have happened, but that I personally believe that it more likely than not happened. That one or more advanced civilizations got buried in them, and there would be no fossil record of artifacts. Here's where it gets entertaining. If that civilization was in fact spacebound and interplanetary, that there may be artifacts. Now, here's where we're really doing a conspiracy deep dive this week, just so you know. This is more esoteric, bordering on conspiracy, but we're everybody put on your tinfoil hats this week. That there may be artifacts on the moon or on Mars. Yeah, of the civilization that previously inhabited here. Now, if you have moneyed and powerful interests, would they not have a vested interest in keeping that knowledge from the public? Would not a corporation who discovered such a thing have a vested interest in keeping it a secret? Would not a government with, say, a space administration. I mean, not just a space administration, but like an aeronautics and space administration. That was maybe nationalized. Uh, have a vested interest in keeping that. I think that's a damn sight more likely for them to be covering up something like that than say flat Earth. Right. I got to do a 3 count every time I'm like compelled to say flat Earth. It's just like I'm compelled to do a 3 count. Like really, really, just a 3 second hard stare. In any case, artifacts on the moon, artifacts on other planets, right? That an advanced civilization that preceded our existence on this earth, wouldn't that be something worth covering up? Wouldn't that be something worth trying to keep under control? Wouldn't that be something that, if released to the public, would grant technological evolutions the likes of which we might not even be able to conceive, right? And of course, wouldn't there be a vested interest in keeping that a secret or keeping it all to yourself so you hold all that money and all that power? That was kind of a conspiracy sidebar, but as a thought experiment, it totally works for me. It totally and completely works for me. Thank you. Face on Mars, pyramid on Mars, all of that stuff, right? But again, as is going to be the root of this whole sermon, so this dovetails very, very nicely. And I was really, really happy to hear that when Ryan sent me this at first. What is that? Traces of cocaine and nicotine in Egyptian mummies. Thank you very much. Graham Hancock has done some stuff that were damn it, Ryan. Just Graham Hancock has done things on lost civilizations that are still within the fossil record. Some of the buried, some of the underwater cities where clearly this was above sea level at some point and has been inundated with rise of sea level or tectonic plate shifts, things like that. That's Graham Hancock's ballpark. What this Silurian hypothesis is going for is that there are civilizations 100 times more advanced than them, 10 times more advanced than us, and even longer ago. Do you believe it? Not required to believe it, but one could look at the possibilities and the likelihoods and more or less take it on faith. Do you see that theme coming up? Good. Stay with me, boys and girls, because it's going to be a feature. So, yeah, the Silurian hypothesis, likely scenario, more technology in the old days, trading with the new world than we realize. And that's right for up to this. But the Silurian hypothesis is taking it even further back, a space-bound civilization. And then again, you look at the Nazca lines, right? You look at the Nazca lines on the South American continent. Some of those things would suggest that we at least had the possibility of flight in one of these earlier civilizations. How far back does the timeline go? How much do we really know? Even science, in this case, what was that we said in the opener about the intellectuals? Even devout scientists, in this case, are returning to the obvious from which the non-intellectuals have never stirred. To wit, we don't know half of what we think we know. So this is a supposition worth looking into, I think. It's definitely a hell of a thought experiment and immensely entertaining. And if you have friends of intellect, you got some of them brainy college boys in your circle, this is definitely something we're talking about. And Ryan, if you could, because I meant to post the link and then I lost it in all the confusion right there when we opened. But it was on Spotify. the podcast he sent me on Spotify, and that presentation was really really heavy. And the other one that you sent me wound up being extremely heavy. The interview with the two guys that did the Danny Castellero special. That was, I had a long drive down here, and I'm about to tell everybody where I'm at. Let's get through the rabbit hole. Silurian hypothesis. What is that? I would suggest our track record of the species does not bode well for achieving technology before we are ready for it. Yeah, well, they might have. And Joey, first of all, welcome. That's a good point. It's an excellent point. Maybe they were a little bit sharper than us. Yeah, maybe they were a little bit. Yeah, all right, thank you. Um, Maybe they were a little bit sharper than us and got a little further down the road before eradicating themselves. Again, these are all things worth pondering, and this is all stuff worth looking at. So look at it, man. The Silurian hypothesis, that is your rabbit hole for the week. Ryan's rabbit hole, the Silurian hypothesis. Now then, boys and squirrels, uh, let me catch up to speed on where I'm at. Uh, this is the Sunday of Thomas. The Sunday of Thomas last year was what brought me back around to the faith. Even though it is the Sunday of one biblical figure, I am feeling a bit like Moses because I am out here in the desert and I'm trying to bring my people to the promised land. When I say out in the desert, I mean out in the desert. I did get hired on for a new gig. I am really looking forward to getting things rolling tomorrow. I think it's going to be an adventure, and I really like where God has put me. I really do. And I like it because I feel like there's a reason for it. Okay. There's nothing out here. Okay. Literally, when I rolled up to the gas station a while ago, this little Mexican kid came out with a Polaroid camera and like pointed at the mountains and said, "This era el tormenta, el tormenta." My Terminator fans got that joke. And if not, catch up. Uh, I'm out in it, man. This is the closest town to me is Tonopah, and that's a good 60 odd miles away. There is a little town that basically centers around the mine. I tell everybody about this gig. Everybody's like, "Hey, you got to give me a gig." I was like, "Yeah, man, it's a gold mine." They're like, "Oh, it pays really good." Well, yeah, that too, but no, it's literally a gold mine. This massive open pit mine out here, and it's this is this is new. This is new because I'm isolated, man. Like there are a couple of like small groceries around here, which are basically just a couple of essentials. But like I knew this coming in, and I did pack my provisions coming in. Like big part of my loadout coming out of Spokane was a whole lot of tuna packets and a whole lot of canned chicken. There was a lot of that coming out here. But here's the beauty of it. I'm out here. If I were to pick an adjective, I think the adjective would be monastic, right? This room that I'm in right now, you can get a general idea of how cozy this room is, but I'm paying hardly anything for it. And, so I'm going to be able to stack money on the per diem, the financial end of it. All of this is really, really cool. But here's the beauty of it. No distractions, none, right? I've got a little convenience store and gas station just down the way. I'm 6 miles from the job site. And that little town over by the job site, right, has a gym, a dungeon kind of gym. And I know right now I can already hear Clem and Sonny cringing. Not for that. That's not it. I gave my word that I was not going to jump back into that, that muscle madness that I had jumped off into. It'll be good for leg day, but here's the thing that I brought. I brought one Indian club, one kettlebell, and a um, TRX type resistance trainer. And I've got that gym, and it's got heavy bags, right? That's where I can get this on, right? I can exercise. They've got speed bags, they've got heavy bags, and they've got some other equipment there at that gym. It's not like I'm going to go in and just start bulking up again. It's not going to be like that. But here's what it's going to do. It's going to ground me because we're working 10-hour days, not 12s. 12s, it's 12s are almost too much. You stack a ton of money, but you literally have nothing. And when I mean nothing, you don't even feel motivated to read when you get out of work. You'll maybe throw something on Netflix and fall asleep in the middle of it and wake up the next morning and get up and do it all again. We're working 6 10s on this gig. That gives me a measure of time, but that measure of time is going to stay occupied. I am going to ground myself in the scriptures, right? I'm going to ground myself in the gym, and that includes the body weight stuff and the combative stuff. I'm going to ground myself in dry work, right? Garment clear, draw the weapon. Garment clear, draw the weapon. Walking back and forth because I can do that inside the room without rattling anybody, right? I can do my hand transitions. I can do all of those drills. I've got a month out here that I'm aware of. It could run longer, but I know that I'll be here for a month. And that's really, really, really it's gonna be good for my soul, man. It's really gonna be good for my soul. So think of this as my little sojourn in the desert, and I'm looking forward to it. I think I was put here for a very specific reason because, and I'll spare you the long story, but the gig more or less really did just sort of drop in my lap. It wasn't expected, and it didn't come through any of the usual channels. There's a reason I'm supposed to be here, and I want to make the absolute most of it. And so that's the intent. That's the declaration of intent, and we're gonna work through that. I like that, Clint. Monastic mode on, yes, indeed. Spartan also, yes, yes, very Spartan surroundings, not the buggering warriors. Bart's not gonna want to leave. I'm already feeling like that. Seriously, man, I nearly called Charlie earlier and was just like, "Hey, baby, what do you think about the desert?" But we're not quite there yet. Pulling a David Carradine. I'm just gonna assume that you meant David Carradine and Lone Wolf McQuaid, and not the putting on a dress and hanging myself while masturbating David Carradine. Actually, you probably did mean that, and I guess once upon a time one is just as likely as the other, but that's what I love about it, Ryan. You ground me, man. You ground me. Son of a gun. Anyway, guys, so that's where we're at, man. I'm gonna be out here working 6 10s, and you guys can look it up on the map. If no, you know what? No, I'll just tell you that the closest town is Tonopah, and then that I'll let you guys speculate. But I'm way out here, man. Like way the hell out here, and I think this is going to be a very positive experience. I'm looking forward to it. I did a little, Sunday, everything's closed out here. Everything's closed, right? And so I got in late last night and slept at a rest stop very close to where I would wind up staying. The place that I found is like 6 miles from the job site. It's awesome. Slept at the rest stop. Couldn't check in until noon, so I thought, all right, well, everything's closed on Sunday, but let's have a drive around, man. I drove into Tonopah. Tonopah had the grocery store open, so I grabbed, a few groceries, spendy, let's say, and then got my butt back here. Drove through the little town that is right next to the mine, and found their community center and took a look at their weight room and their gym, and it's epic, and I'm just blown away by all of it. It's really great. And Tonopah, yes, Dennis, Tonopah is only a town by definition. That is correct. Wide spot in the road. I think there's a couple of casinos and a low rent whorehouse. I think in Tonopah, maybe. I don't even think they have a whorehouse in Tonopah. To be honest with you, I think it's just nickel slots. I don't know. Never mind. Don't take the easy joke about nickel slots in a whorehouse. All right. So, what do you say we jump into it, man? 610s is nice. Congrats. Yeah, I know, man. I know you've been on. Yeah, you've been on 12s for 4 freaking years. 2 to 60 hours every 14 days, bro. Yeah, yeah. Eh, Just pulling, just pulling 7 12s. 13 on. Well, actually, I won't even say 13 on, one off, because when I was working out at Kennecott, I think I worked 3 straight months without a day off, and you've been doing that. You've been doing that for years, man. 7 12s. Like I can't even fathom that, man. It's a grind. It is just a soul wrenching grind. Yeah, I thought about staying there, Dennis, but I didn't want to commute like an hour and a half to work every day. Um, yeah, man. Yeah, 12s are great if you're stacking money. 12, if you looking to chase paper and stack money, I am not hating on you. I will take 7 12s. I'll take 6 12s. I'll take 7 12s. We know what we sign up for when we get into these gigs. But like I said, I can't help but feel like some kind of divine providence in this. The fact that it was 6 10s instead of 7 12s. There's a reason I'm supposed to be here, and there's a reason that I'm supposed to have a certain allotment of time. And my plan is to make the most of it. So that's where we're at. Yeah, brother. Yeah, speaking of, and Ryan can tell you about being isolated, man, because he's not in the Nevada desert. He's out in the West Texas desert, right? And they are, with all the heavy stuff that they're putting into the ground out there. He's running details on that. Some days he's the only guy. He's the only guy within blast radius of the thing he's lowering into the other thing that might blow the up. I'm way oversimplifying, but I mean, you guys aren't really familiar with a lot of that stuff. Well, most of you aren't really familiar with a lot of that stuff. But he's working on things that periodically do explode. And a lot of times he's the only guy inside the blast radius where everybody else clears back. They have to have him there to hold the load. Everybody else get the hell out. How do you think that's got to feel? 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 4 years. So, yeah. So, Planet Ryan, Planet Ryan can be a pretty desolate place. So, if you feel like buying him a case of Omaha steaks, let me know. I will hook you up with the address where you can ship it out to the job site, because I'm sure he will find a way to set up a grill. So if any of you guys would, now I feel like one of those old charities, with the starving children. They'd be like, for just 30 cents a day, you can help a poor crane operator afford, we're out there with that sad face on. No, no, me and Ryan aren't going to be able to pull that off. Anyway, man, we're out here, we're making it work, and I couldn't be happier. I feel blessed. And again, I want to thank Ryan for opening that door for me, man. Because given the course of this evolution, if I had not said yes when that phone call came in, my life would be a very different and very less interesting place right now. Did you hear that in Sally Struthers' voice? I was wondering. Of course, I wanted to take it there and just go for the Sam Kinison. It's like, it occurred to us there wouldn't be any world hunger if you people would know where the food is. I don't want to do the Kinnison scream, man. I think my neighbors are probably already wondering why I'm in here talking to myself. But anyway, appreciate you guys showing up. So here's what's actually at the root of it. First thing I wanted to do, you just going through bullet points. Knuckledraggers and Philosophs. Knuckledraggers and Philosophs. This is a cultural phenomenon that I've been noticing, and the pushback against it has been something to behold. I was hoping Bone would be here. I was hoping Boneside Bongso would be here, because we both got rooked into a thread this week. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, wasn't that funny? Yeah, you remember that? You remember that? Sally Struthers, you guys know Sally Struthers in the commercials she used to do for World Hunger, and every year she would do those commercials. She just kept getting badder, and like I had an even more sinister theory than Roman had. I thought she was eating the kids. Yeah. Yeah, just why are these kids starving? Because Sally's eating all the food. No, I thought she was eating the kids. I really did for a minute. I was kind of weird when I was young, but I was like, she just keeps getting fatter, and there's fewer kids in every, and it sort of, yeah, it was, it was a defining moment for young Bart. Knuckledraggers and Philosophs. Yeah, I knew we were going to get sideways on this one, but I don't care, man. I don't care. Um, uh, I'm just enjoying it, and I'm really glad. I'm really just glad to be here, and I'm glad you guys hung out, and I'm really really glad that you guys hung out through all of that lead in and all of the production difficulties we had just to get this thing going, man. I mean, it means a lot to me, so thank you for that. Knuckle draggers and Philosophs. This is a thing that I've noticed as a cultural phenomenon, and the pushback has been something else to behold. But a couple of the ones that I've got, the one that came up, and this is one I'm going to put you guys onto. And I want you don't have to promise me, but at least tell me you're going to make the effort. If you're not already subscribed to the Sean Ryan podcast, I my first listening to Sean was when he started talking about the perils of child sex trafficking and government involvement in that, because that's in my wheelhouse, man. That's something that I'm currently working with two ministries in Spokane that are involved in that and pulling kids and women out of human trafficking. And so somebody recommended that particular podcast. That was in my wheelhouse. I started listening to his other stuff. Now I'm subscribed. Sean Ryan, last week. I want to say last week. It might have been on earlier than that, and I didn't get it until last week. But Jordan B. Peterson was on the Sean Ryan podcast, and the flow of it was something amazing. First it was advice on being able to stabilize your marriage, and then it went into biblical, confession, repentance, atonement, and it went into biblical models of the differences between Abraham and Noah. And that was what I want to touch on that one a little bit. But the way that God manifested himself to Abraham, right, is very, very different than the way that God manifested himself to Noah. And Abraham was he had lived a spoiled life. He was a spoiled little punk kid, and God yanked him up out of there and said, get your ass out of the tent and get out there and have some adventures and learn some things about life. So that was one manifestation of God. Get off your ass and experience life. The milk toast thing and living in the middle of the road, those are the people that are easiest to persuade into evils like tyranny and, totalitarianism and things like that. Authoritarianism, all these things. It's the people that are in the middle of the road because they don't know light and they don't know darkness. Ryan, I'm sure, is going to bring up Carl Jung, and he's right to do that because he's beating me to the punch. If you don't know your shadow, there's no tree that can reach heaven when the roots haven't gone all the way down to hell. If you're not doing work on your shadow, you are vulnerable to it. So that was how he manifested himself to Abraham. The way that God manifested himself to Noah was something completely different. It was not, hey man, get out, take the prepare. Something bad is coming and you should prepare. And this, man, it's hitting. It's just hitting. I'm listening to this and the spiritual messages are just hitting, man. Get your ass out and experience life. Prepare for the unexpected because tough things are heading your way. Like all these things. It was a really great interview, but that covered part of it. And then he went into why people are so vulnerable to evil because they are not doing their shadow work and how, even in the name of creating something good, this is all going to tie back in to the conspiracy stuff. How in the process of creating something good, Elon might have been making that effort, but maybe, just maybe, Twitter is intrinsically evil. And the answer to that question, as Dr. Peterson put it, is not really obvious. He brought up the way that psychopathic tendencies are encouraged and nurtured by this platform and the types of people that do it. And because the mainstream person will not confront that evil, they make themselves and the rest of us vulnerable to it, right? When Stalin, it was a very, we're not even going to go that deep. It was a very small number of fringe lunatic personalities that instigated the Bolshevik Revolution, the Russian Revolution. Very small number, right? Of very devoted people. Say in the same way, a marginalized group like, oh, I don't know, the transgender crowd, or the diversity, equity, and inclusion crowd. These are marginalized individuals, and the comeback from the milquetoast person is always, well, they don't really mean it. Really, they don't. And not to pick on the guy with the funny mustache, but Hitler said the very same. They said the same things about Hitler. Hitler laid out at the very beginning every single thing that he was going to do. It's right there in Mein Kampf. If you've never read it, he pretty much laid out what he was going to do. He didn't lay out the things that they are hanging on him that he did not do, um, but he let everybody know what he was going to do. Put it right out there, and everybody went, he doesn't mean it, right? They said the same thing about the SDS and the Weather Underground. Yeah, they're a bunch of campus radicals, but they don't really mean it until bombs started going off at federal buildings. And you know what? The right is just as guilty. The right is absolutely just as guilty. Sorry, folks, we got to own it. Oh, they're talking about murdering abortion doctors, but they don't really mean it. Cap, cap. Now, you can agree or disagree about the rightness or wrongness of that action. I'm not here to make a moral judgment. I'm just saying what Dr. Peterson says. And that is, when these extremists tell you who they are, believe them. Oh, you just mean the leftists, right? No, 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 no. Maybe you haven't been paying attention for the past ever, uh, that I've been talking about the Boogaloo crowd and breaking no bread with those guys. When they're talking about being gung ho for the shooting to start, take them at their word. They mean it. This is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. Words mean things. The other side says, we want you dead. I take you at your word. When Hamas and Hezbollah say, we want you dead and we want America destroyed, I take them at their word. Okay. And I act accordingly. When the Sanhedrins when the Sanhedrins and the Talmud say, we think your savior is boiling in excrement for eternity, I take them at their word. And I've got nothing to say to them either. You see how this works? Words mean things. I have been accused, and this is you guys are going to laugh at this, but I've actually been accused of. Oh yeah, dude. I know I'm way late on Sean Ryan. I'm way late. Um, bro, yes, the spiritual element is not the only wisdom uh, that you've imparted that has sunk in. Okay. Uh, uh, anyway, where were we? Um, taking people at their word. I've been accused of parsing my words. You believe that? As much as I let it all hang out, I've been accused, sometimes partially correctly, of parsing my words. It's not a matter of parsing, it's a matter of specificity. Words mean things. When I tell you something, you can take me at my word. When I tell you, Ryan, here's an example. When I tell Ryan, hey man, I'm down to come out and learn the crane trade, right? How would it look for me if he's got an opportunity for me and he's already done most of the groundwork and he calls me up and says, hey man, I know you've been wanting to learn this stuff. Bring it on out. We're in Nebraska. And I go, well, I've got this going on. I've got that going on. Is there any way we could make, like, maybe, kind of punk would I be? Right. When I tell you I've got your back, that means I've got your back. When I tell you I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. When I tell you I hate you, believe it. Believe it. When I tell you I'm done and I have nothing further to say to you, believe it. And I take other people at their word as well. I do. And that's everybody from campus protesters to the pro Hamas Hezbollah lunatics to the Antifa maggots. You tell me that you want the destruction of the West, I take you at your word. Because I've seen the light and I've seen the darkness in myself, and I'm able to access and speak from both of those positions. I know nobody's ever 100% self actualized, but I'm more than most. I've done some soul searching work. And when I get to a point where I am found wanting or found that something is no longer serving my interests or something is no longer true in the final analysis, I shift gears. When Sonny published that thing about doubt, it really hit because a lot of us out there may come off too hard on the doubters, right? And a lot of times the doubters will bring it on themselves, right? Because they come at you from like taking the easy jabs and, savior on a stick. Oh, you got to use his hand for a whistle. They come at you because they're masking their own fear. Not in every case, but a lot of times they're masking their own fear. Don't judge. If they come at you hostile, trying to beat you down, obviously you got to do what you got to do. But the ones who just doubt, you got to make room for that. You got to make room for that. Thomas doubted. What did the carpenter do? Put your hand in the wound. I doubted. I doubted. Sunday at Thomas. I had something happen to me that was so powerful that it brought me back around. But I could just as easily be that person who went on doubting, right? Doubt, as you will read in that essay, is often the first element of seeking. If you just jump headlong without any critical thought, you're kind of an idiot. If you continue to reject something when it continues to show itself to you to be true, idiocy is not the word. The word for you, sir, is kindling. And for what? And for what? You were afraid of how people might react. You were afraid of having to re-examine your life. And this isn't just a matter of faith. This isn't just a matter of faith that I'm talking about here. Political beliefs, ethical beliefs, beliefs about your workout program. I doubt. Try it. Read more. Learn more. Be willing to accept that you could have been wrong. And then if you dig deeper and you find out you own it and you change course. This is how thinking, growing, evolving people operate, whether in faith or any other. That was a sidebar. Went down Tangent Street for a minute. Knuckledraggers and Philosophs. It wasn't just that Sean Ryan show, right? Sean Ryan, Knuckledragger, Navy SEAL. Jocko Willing, Knuckledragger, Navy SEAL. And you look at a guy like Rogan. Rogan has had Jordan Peterson on. He's also entertained Graham Hancock. He's also entertained any number of people, including Jonathan Haidt, right? Some of the sociological research that Haidt has done. When you think in terms of knuckle-draggers, right? I consider myself a knuckle dragger. Most of the blue collar guys that actually have calluses on their hands consider themselves knuckle draggers. If you have ever trained martial arts, if you have ever been serious about combatives, if you have ever lived a life that was based around violent criminal enterprises, if you're just an all around gorilla, you can consider yourself a knuckle dragger, right? Cro Magnon. I believe Huxley would refer to us as non intellectuals. Here's where it gets back with the Philosophs and the Knuckle Draggers. I wish Bone was here for this because we were on a thread where someone was clowning Dr. Peterson because it's an easy thing for people. But here is the thing that you know if you are a fan of Dr. Peterson. You've read his stuff. You know where his rhetoric does go and where it doesn't. And they had come up with this absurd Jordan Peterson quote generator, and it was cranking out just the stupidest stuff. And it actually cranked out something about the women and bears thing. And these guys on this thread, some feminist page, they were yucking it up about and his stupid they'll eat it up because they're just dumb and or my favorite he's a dumb person's idea of a smart person. That one always. People who are familiar with Dr. Peterson and Jonathan Haidt for that matter, or Graham Hancock or any of these people that are coming around, we are decidedly non-intellectual types. We might have read a bit more than the average person, but we are not, we're not bookworms by any stretch of the imagination. We're not, it's certainly not the first thing one would use to describe us, right? But what we arrive at is the obvious. And the things that the intellectual set are telling us now, whether it's Jordan Peterson, whether it's Jonathan Haidt, whether it's any of these higher intellects, they are arriving at conclusions. Why do these they can't be college smart or they wouldn't appeal to these knuckle draggers. That is precisely the appeal to the knuckle draggers. Read the quote again. The course of every intellectual, if he pursues his journey long and unflinchingly enough, ends in the obvious from which the non-intellectuals have never stirred. It's not a matter of us elevating our consciousness or elevating our understanding to reach theirs. It is their long and unflinching intellectual journey that is finally arriving in the obvious. We never moved off of that. What we have been treated to are several generations of people who are going through intellectual gymnastics to justify evil, to excuse aberrant behavior, to rationalize double standards and ideological inconsistencies. You've had generations of primarily left wing professors, right, who have gone out of their way with the predictable results. This ties back into the cultural phenomenon, okay? The knuckle draggers tend to vote what? We tend to vote what? Conservative Republican. When they give us a real conservative Republican to vote for, that's how we vote. And the left goes crazy. Why would the working class vote against their own interests? Because they are trapped in that echo chamber. Because they are trapped in that echo chamber and they don't understand. They put out this preposterous satirical quote from Dr. Peterson, and me and Bone were like, that doesn't even sound like him. Like, what are you people even talking about? Yeah, but you had to Google it, didn't you? No, we didn't. That was absurd. Jonathan Haidt has done the work. This gentleman down here, this gentleman has done the work, and you should go and look at some of that work. Haidt, Haidt, Jonathan Haidt. Look up the work that he's done. Us knuckle draggers, are actually opening our minds more than the so-called left-wing intellectuals that have been trying to school us for the past several generations. And what they are winding up with, the true intellectuals that Huxley is talking about, they are arriving at the obvious that, oh my goodness, the nuclear family is the basis of a stable society. Who would have thought that hedonistic pursuit of pleasure for its own sake and no concept of delayed gratification is going to lead to generations of people who are empty inside and vulnerable to all sorts of madness and criminality? Who would have thought? Who would have thought that we would have wound up here by listening to all of these things that these people have been telling us to do? And I'm not putting it all on them because I was there. I was there. There is such a thing as observe without judgment. It's observation without judgment, observing without judging. Okay. I understand, right? My depravity on the sexual front is the stuff of legend in some circles. Hedonism? Oh, I got you, hedonism. Needle in my arm and another injection going on. I pursued it, abandoned everything. I even took a hard turn to the left there for a while, right around early 90s, 91, 92. Took a hard turn to the left. But again, because I have the sense to think my way through things, you evolve. You go, wow, okay, wait a minute. No, I was wrong here. I was wrong. I need to do better. The intellectual class, true intellectual class by Huxley's standard, is coming around to the obvious. The ones that remain that far out, polarized, are not true intellectuals. They're ideologues. They're zealots. They are the academic equivalent of religious lunatics. They are committed. They can see the results of what they advocate happening right now in real time and continue to double down and push for it. In the places that it hasn't already reached, they are trying to push it into those dark corners, including children. This is not intellect. This is zealotry. This is religious fervor, for lack of a better word, particularly coming from a class that derides religion. Something worth thinking about. The Knuckledraggers are coming together with the Philosophs because the Philosophs have come around to the obvious, and the Knuckledraggers never left that. So when Jordan Peterson is talking about the importance of the nuclear family, the importance of putting down your burden but picking up your cross, when he is talking about the importance of giving your life some meaning by shouldering the burden and doing your best to oppose malevolence wherever you find it and carrying yourself in a way that honors, in his own words, living as if God existed. Whether or not you believe in God, living as if God existed. These are things that created functional societies in the past. Our civilization in the past, when anchored to these things, was solid and stable and productive. But these intellectuals went off on that course. And instead of coming back around when they saw that everything was getting sideways, just went further out. No, we haven't gone far enough. No, we haven't gone far enough. No, we haven't gone far enough. And we see the results. Right? Right? How did that Chaz community work? Right. They are the high priest of a dying sect. Joey, I'm just letting you know, point blank to your face, I am straight up stealing that. I am I am appropriating it for the good of the collective. The high priest of a dying sect. That is awesome. George and are the same one who read one Langston Hughes poem and are now woke. Outstanding, Ryan. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's plenty other strange bedfellows with that crowd as well. What is it? The quiet racism of low expectations, I believe. They see their incipient extinction and are struggling to subvert the growth that will destroy them. Yes, yes, Joe, you put that exceedingly well. And Huxley, in terms of Knuckledragger, would probably be an epsilon, semimoron, or gamma. Um, they're coming back around to the obvious. They are coming back around to the obvious. And now that they've arrived here, we're like, guys, we never left. You made fun of us. You berated us. You derided us. You did all of these things. I don't know. I don't hear any clicking. I don't know. But now you come around. The true intellectuals have come around. And they don't have any choice at this point. They don't have any choice at this point because the results of the other path are demonstrating themselves on a daily basis. Broken families, broken civilization, social upheaval, a whole generation of young people living under the banner and protection of Western civilization that seek and further marginalized groups. We got to make allowances for you. There is a reason those groups are on the margins. Wait a minute, aren't you guys the ones saying that we got to be pushed out for the good of the collective? How is that any different? How is that any different? What, because your heart's in the right place? There is a reason those groups are on the margins. Look at their ideology. And when you pull that marginalized ideology and you mainstream it, good luck. Boy, making porn mainstream, and again, not judging, making an observation without judgment because, very big struggle on my end. Very big struggle on my end. But the mainstreaming of porn, anybody want to try to make the case that that was good for civilization? The mainstreaming of third gen feminism and man hating, anyone want to make the case that that's been good for a stable civilization? Going in the span of less than 10 years from drag queen story hour to surgically butchering children for the sake of a trans agenda. Anybody want to make a case that that's really progress? Living in a manner as if God existed. I don't know what kind of intellectual gymnastics you've got to do to convince yourself that God would want children butchered. Wink, wink. I'm not letting you take me off my game today, Ryan. They've come around. They're arriving in the obvious. And it is time for those non intellectuals who have never stirred from this position to take advantage, seize the day. What was the Orwell quote? Come on, you guys know the one. What was the Orwell quote? And you knew we weren't getting out without one. He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. The so-called intellectual classes are controlling around. We have to take control of the present and reestablish the history that has been stolen from us. It wasn't that long ago that we were pretty well humming along. And of course, the fringe will want to come out. Well, yeah, for white European men, yeah. That rising tide lifted all boats. Oh, women are so oppressed in this civilization. Yeah, I mean, hell, man, we make them wear hoods like a beekeeper. We don't let them vote. We don't let them drive. We're oppressed. Shut up, Karen. The West has its problems, but things are better in the West for everyone than any other place on this planet. And if that were not true, everyone else on this planet wouldn't be trying to get here, only to have our own usurpers from the inside out turn them against the very place that has given them refuge and try to recruit them into taking it down from the inside out. Enough. Because even the intellectual classes are coming back around. There is more than a revival going on right now. And there is a revival going on right now. Don't get it twisted, son. Carpenter is work. Carpenter is at work. There is a revival going on. You had best believe that. But beyond the revival, there is an awakening. There is an awakening. There is a return. This is why it's so vitally important to rob a culture of their history if you wish to destroy them. Because a culture that has no sense of its own history is one that is doomed. We have the present. We have to seize the present to take back our past if we have any hope of the future. And that is that. What are we taking on? We're taking on faith. Wait, what do you mean faith? Weren't we just talking about conspiracy stuff? Yeah, we were talking about conspiracy stuff. The Casolero thing. Did anybody actually watch the documentary? I got through the first episode of the documentary. I should probably watch the rest of it just to say that I did, if for no other reason. And I looked for that index card before I left. And Charlie, if you're there, I hope it did not get destroyed in that water pump accident that happened out in the shed. Because a lot of my old conspiracy papers from back then did get destroyed. Basically, a pipe ruptured and sprayed water all over and there's a sagging ceiling fan. It was a mess, but a whole lot of irreplaceable stuff got destroyed, including my earliest forays into the conspiracy thing. And that was back in the day, pre-internet, where you really had to get kind of crafty, and it was like meeting with people who had copies of this, who could refer you to this guy, and you would meet a dude in the library and you guys would talk, and then you'd go have coffee somewhere else and you'd be like, hey man, here's the deal, I've got this envelope, I want you to read this, tell me what you think about it. There were like these underground fanzines that were basically just like 8.5 by 11s that were folded and center stapled with all these different things. It was a weird time to be into conspiracy. I was conspiracy when conspiracy wasn't cool. But one of the first ones that I got on after my, and this was even prior to my real awakening, which came at Waco. Like, I knew what powers were capable of, but Waco was my serious red pill moment. But I was on the Danny Casolero tip. It was an article in a magazine called The Nation. The Nation, at the time, was a pretty left-wing rag. Still is. Z magazine was another one that I was actually subscribed to for a while. Keep in mind, it's 91. And I read about this journalist, The Shadow World of Danny Casolero, I believe was the name of the article. And I would clip articles from these things and put them onto index cards. And I had like all these index card boxes just like full of stuff. I was on it. So how do you deal with somebody who's really, really bringing something to people's awareness if you're a money to power interest? Or that's how you dealt with it then. Physical assassination. I would go further and say that Danny Casolero would still be alive today if he had stumbled on what he had stumbled on in this day and age. It is the rare person, Seth Rich, for instance, I'll wait for y'all to Google that, who still gets physically killed. They don't need to do that anymore. They can assassinate your character. For instance, all these philosophs, all these intellectuals who are coming around, how do you assail them? Do you think any of these left-wing crybabies Right, and of course that was the one that got me. That was the one that got me from day one, because that was one of the first things that came out. Honey, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by. It means the world that you showed up, man. A couple of weeks in a row. I'm gonna keep just catch the replay when you can. But thank you for being here, Mama. Appreciate that. Thank you. Dennis, you give your mom a hug for me. She is an amazing woman, absolutely amazing woman. Give your mama a hug for me. Tell her I said Happy Mother's Day. That was the first thing that set it off for me, and I read that that was actually in that report in Nation magazine, that both of his wrists were cut all the way through the bone. They didn't mention tendons, but they said that both were cut all the way through. That the blade had actually left an incision on the bone, or a scrape on the bone. And I thought to myself, how does that happen? Because if you take the one, you can't use your thumb to do the other. It's like the guy that commits suicide by shooting himself twice in the head. Only I can actually see where that might have happened. It's unlikely, and we know it's BS, but I could see where that could have theoretically happened if he's kind of limp wristing it and, bang, and as it comes back forward, that accidental double tap, that accidental discharge. We've all done it at the range at one point or another. I could see where that might happen, gun to your own head. But anyway. Not opposable digits when your tendons are severed. I was on that. They had to kill Danny Castellero. And he was in that transition period too, because now all you have to do, you don't need physical assassination when you have character assassination. Character assassination. None of these left-wing crybaby lunatics are in any position to impugn the intellectual authority of someone like Jordan Peterson. Or, for that matter, Sam Harris, who I vehemently disagree with, and he completely went off the deep end. His intellect is beyond reproach. What he's chosen to do with it is reprehensible. But none of these left-wing crybabies are fit to hold Sam Harris or Jordan B. Peterson's nutsack. They're not. They can't impugn them. So who do they impugn? They impugn us, the Knuckledraggers. It's guilt by association. It's guilt by association. Why would they be appealing to them? If you were a real intellectual, you'd be appealing to us. Your boos mean nothing because I've seen what makes you cheer. Familiar with that? Their intellectuals are telling them that cutting the cock off a healthy 13-year-old boy is affirmative care. That's their intellectuals. Our intellectuals are telling us that the family unit is the basis of a stable civilization. Tell me again how you are our intellectual betters. Tell me again how it speaks volumes that you're judging Jordan Peterson by his followers. I got to tell you something, Sparky. You may not have noticed, but the man sold over 12 million books. Could be something to it. The man has had a positive effect on literally millions of lives. Millions, plural. He's out here doing great things. What are you doing? Oh, yeah, wrecking our campuses and what are you wrecking our campuses and butchering our kids. Yeah. You guys are really, really great thing you guys got going on. I digress. Character assassination versus physical assassination. You don't have to kill a Tucker Carlson. You assassinate his character. You don't have to kill a James O'Keefe. You just assassinate his character. You don't have to kill an Alex Jones. You just have to assassinate his character. But guess what? Here's where it gets even more complicated. Every single one of those, and you guys know because we did a deep dive on propaganda not so very long ago. and the way that these things are being turned against us, and that there are deliberately agents who are planting disinformation. There are agents of what they call controlled opposition to make us think that we're getting insight when really we're still playing into the hands of the collective. We're still playing into the hands of the power structure. Who knows? Who knows? And there are many more who live for the opportunity to assassinate character. Well, of course. They live to assassinate character because there is nothing special about them. They have not taken up a cross. They have not decided to bear the weight and responsibility. They carry nothing. They stand for nothing. They represent nothing. The only thing that makes them special is when a government tells them that you did a good job doing what you were told. That's the only time they're special. Why do you think what happened during the COVID epidemic happened? All of the hashtag Stasi Karens out there. Why? Why do you think that happened? Because never in their life have they had one thing special about them. Never. They're not happy in their marriages. Their husband, their husband can't find their G spot with an infrared tracker and 2 Sherpa guides. They're miserable people. And the men, so-called, among them, even worse. Beaten down by life. Never been in a scrap in their life. Get winded, run up a flight of stairs. They know how weak they are. And it's a burden on them. It is. In a weird kind of way, I almost sympathize. It's a burden on them to carry, knowing how weak and ineffectual they are. But if they have a chance to feel special, hey, if I narc out my neighbor, the government will tell me I'm good. Validates their whole existence, doesn't it? I'm all over the place here. Disinformation. How do I know that all of the things, and Tucker right now, as much as I hated him, as much as I hated Tucker during the Bush years, I feel like his conversion is legit. All indications are that his conversion is legit. Most of all, the fact that Fox cut him loose. Same way they did with Glenn Beck. Some of this may have to do with the faith, because I know that the Carpenter is really good at taking flawed men and doing magnificent things with them. I live to be an example of that, because I've seen what he's done. Saul of Tarsus, for that little conversion on the road to Damascus, murdered children, tortured and murdered whole families of Christians, and he became God's most prolific apostle. I'm all about redemption for those who are seeking redemption. But the thing is, he's coming from what? Darkness. What am I coming from? Darkness. What are many of you coming from? Darkness. A place of darkness. And when you come to the light, there is more that God can do with you. These milquetoast Stasi Karen types do not know. Easy scripture reference. They are neither hot nor cold. You are neither hot nor cold, so I will spit thee from my mouth. Thank you for that. They know nothing. They seek that middle of the road existence. And the further society and civilization shifts toward a mainstream middle of the road existence is naked hedonism, where do you think the Stasi Karen crowd is going to go? They're going to get deeper and deeper into it. Not even discourage their kids from it. Dude, I have met 14-year-olds that have had multiple threesomes. And this was years ago when my son was still in high school. Openly talking about it. Once upon a time, I would have thought that was really cool. I'm not judging anybody for it now. Because Lord knows I've done tons worse. But what does it say when the vulnerable ones that we are supposed to be protecting and setting an example for are thumping their chests about that? How they can't wait for their 18th birthday so they can finally sell pictures of their butthole on OnlyFans? Is that where we want to go? Is that really what we're about now? Doesn't take an intellectual. Take a look around, see how screwed up that is. But again, how do we know who's informing us about what and who is telling us the truth anymore? Who know the deal's in deception? A lot of you are like the devil. Yeah, well, you would be correct, but Mossad has it right there in their motto. The Israeli intelligence service. By deception shall we wage war. It's right there in their motto. The media who seek to control, we know that we can't trust them, but how do we know who to trust on the alternative media? Do you know for a fact that Joe Rogan hasn't been compromised? $100 million to do damn interesting things to a person. I don't happen to personally believe that, but roll with it for right now. Can you guarantee that he hasn't been compromised? What about Alex Jones? He's got shook out of most of every penny that he's ever made, to the point where he's having to do video games. By the way, Ryan, thank you for turning me on to that. Just to make ends meet. Can you say that he hasn't been compromised? Can you say that he wouldn't be compromised if somebody, no, he's a good, devout, moral man? Okay, maybe. Maybe. So how do we know? How do we know? We don't. Do you remember the thought experiment that I did a couple of weeks ago about General Flynn? Remember when I asked you guys if you guys were upset when you found out that he went to jail, and did you get angry down to your gut when you found out that he'd been charged with treason? Think about how many of you guys responded to that. Yes, man, we were angry as hell. And then I brought up he never went to jail. He was never charged with treason. None of us are so far beyond. But speaking of conspiracies, hiding conspiracies out there in plain sight, JFK, everybody knows. But how demoralizing is that, right? Everybody knows. You might not know the face of the assassins or who the railroad tramps were, but you know that the government's got their hands all over that. Who doesn't know that? Is there any human being on the planet with two brain cells left to rub together that legitimately thinks that Oswald acted alone? Of course not. It's right out there in our face. We can't do anything about it. Speaking of JFK, I'm reminded of the film. You guys remember the film? Two quotes from that movie stuck with me. One I still use to this day regularly. It's when Jim Garrison is in the park meeting with X, right? X was modeled on Fletcher Prouty, right? Who was a legit intelligence asset who went rogue and exposed a lot of stuff about the JFK assassination. But they're having the discussion in the park, and he says, hey, bud, what you got to remember is that fundamentally people are suckers for the truth. Right? There's another quote that sticks with me, and it's on a completely different level, where they're arguing in Garrison's office. And they're experiencing the same thing that I'm trying to make the point of and set the scene for here, of how do you know who to believe anymore? We just got this, but then we found out they deliberately gave us that to mislead us over to this. And then this is complete BS. They're arguing. Garrison tries to make a moral point, and one of his assistant DAs says, this is Southern Louisiana, Chief. I mean, how do you know who your father is? Because your mother told you so. That one's always hit hard, but on a different level. Now I think about it in terms of how representative that is, not to conspiracy theory, but to faith. Stay with me. At some point, it is all an act of faith. From the lowest level to the highest level, we have no concept. We can go with likelihoods, we can go with statistical representations, we can go with the best available research says, we can go with, well, the experts said that, we can go with anything. But what do we know? What do we know? It's what we believe. Kind of flipping the script on Robert Anton Wilson, which is a brilliant quote. I don't believe anything, I only know. Listen to what he's saying there. I don't believe anything, I only know. What is what you know? What is what you know? Beliefs that you have internalized, rightly or wrongly, but at some point it all becomes an act of faith. Us deplorables, us non intellectuals down here on the bottom rung have never moved from the obvious that there is intrinsic good and intrinsic evil, and there is objective truth. That stable civilizations are built on stable families. That stable civilizations are anchored to a moral compass of some sort and a social structure of some sort. And that freedom comes with responsibility, and that freedom only goes as far as it is allowed to by consequence. You don't need a law to keep somebody in line. You need an understanding. That came up in that Sean Ryan interview with Jordan Peterson. Jordan brought that up. He says, there's some things I'm not going to say here, not because I'm hiding, but because I know there would be immediate physical consequences. The intellectuals, the true intellectuals, have come back around to the obvious. The so-called intellectuals on the left, they want everything to be quiet because they know that independent of their filter, there will be immediate physical consequences for the things that they do. So what's the moral compass? What is the moral compass that you choose to lean on? What is the belief that you choose to accept? I'll leave that to you. I can tell you what I've found. I can tell you that the carpenter working through me, but a lot of you can't get there because, no, I'm going to say you can't get there. A lot of you haven't gotten there. A lot of you have held yourself back because you can't let go on an act of faith. Of course, the retort to that is, yeah, but there's all kinds of evidence based. Evidence based. Yeah, but who's presenting that evidence? Who's presenting the evidence? Theories, hypotheses, accepted norms, conventional wisdom. I'm not saying you throw all that stuff out. That's how the words are going to get misconstrued, and I'm not worried about that. I'm not saying you throw all that stuff out. You take everything, kind of the best evidence, but some of you guys have seen the best evidence. Some of you guys may even be feeling it in your soul right now, like I was for years. A lot of y'all might be feeling it right now. But you can't make that leap of faith. Let me tell you something. Every single thing that you do, everything you choose to believe is based on faith. You have faith that this particular person is not lying to you about this particular thing in this particular circumstance. You have, well, they lie occasionally, but most of the time I found that they're telling the truth, so I choose to believe them. Some of you even have, I just do what the experts tell me. Go get our lines. But at some point, it all becomes a leap of faith, does it not? This Danny Casolero thing. How do we know? How do we know he didn't just kill himself? There are plenty of people who have made very good cases for that. How do we know Oswald didn't act alone? There are a couple of people who have made decent cases for it. As laughable as it is, there are people out there that have made decent cases for that. How do we know Epstein didn't hang himself? We don't know. We don't know who shot from the grassy knoll. We don't know who orchestrated 9/11. We don't know what happened to Building 7. We choose to believe the things we believe from the people that we choose to give weight and gravity to their particular interpretation of the truth. And then from there, it becomes an act of what? Faith. Not what you believe, what you know. Flip the script on Robert Anton Wilson. I don't believe anything. I only know. And that, I'll be the first to admit, is rooted in faith. Looking through the rearview mirror now, I can see that it always has been. Going forward, I will continue to walk in that faith. Not going to blind myself. Not going to ignore relevant facts. Not going to not take a look at the best available evidence. But you've got to know that every single decision you make about what you choose to believe and not to believe is rooted in faith. I will continue to trust that faith going forward. I don't believe anything. I only know. I only know. Probably not what Robert Anton Wilson had in mind, but it works. From an ideological perspective, I don't believe anything. I only know. I don't believe that the carpenter works in my life. I know. I don't believe that there is a divine plan. I know there is a divine plan. And I live in accordance with that. For those people who are still out there, you get there when you get there. And maybe you don't. But I will tell you that the people who doubt, doubt is the first step of searching, man. Doubt is the first step of searching. I'm not going to judge somebody for doubting. I'm not going to judge somebody because they don't follow me in the faith and they're not on the same path. I don't judge anybody for that. The people that ridicule, I don't judge them, but I don't bother them. I don't bother with them either. I don't break any bread with them because I know where it's coming from. It's coming from fear. It's just coming from fear. Fear that you'll have to change. Fear that you'll have to reflect on yourself. Fear that you might actually have to own up. The things that Dr. Peterson brought up. Confession. Right? Confession. Working its way through to atonement. You're going to have to confess. And then you are going to have to atone. If you skated this long with no atonement, why would there be any incentive for you to change your way now? I understand, man. Stay rooted in it. It's cool. It's cool. You're going to have a lot of company. But do understand that the doubt that you may be entertaining on whatever level, it's okay. Proceed forward from doubt. If doubt causes you to just piss on an idea out of hand and say, man, screw that. These people are idiots. All right. That's not doubt. That's fear. Doubt should be the first step in searching. I want to dig a little deeper and I want to find out how much truth these guys are bringing to the table. Because ultimately, what and who you decide to trust, what and who you decide to believe, what you decide to know is all ultimately going to be a leap of faith. If you needed 100% guarantees you wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. If you needed 100% guarantees you'd never leave your house. If you needed 100% guarantees you'd still be living in your mom's basement. And there's no guarantees even then. Mom could be lying to you. Mom could be a serial killer. Mom could be a pedophile. You don't know. How do you know who your dad is? Because your mother told you so. Let's take that down the root. How do you know who your dad is? Because your mother told you so. You might look like him. You might have a lot of the same mannerisms. You might have the same basic physical characteristics. You don't know. You were not there. Technically for the pro-life crowd, you were there at the moment of conception. But not in any way it's going to do you any good. You weren't there. You weren't there when your dad was knocking your mom up. So how do you know? Because your mother told you so. Oh, she got documentation? How many times have people gotten a fake DNA test result? Fake birth certificate? That's never happened? Do you know? You know, you're taking it some level. Every single decision that you make on this earth is rooted on one level or another in faith. I choose to train with this person because I have faith that he is going to be bringing me solid wisdom, solid technique, and he is going to be encouraging me to question and doubt. I follow this journalist because he has spoken the truth consistently, and when he has made a mistake, he's owned up to it. But at the end of the day, he could be lying right now. I am taking this on faith. So the people that want to ridicule me for my faith, it's okay, man. It's okay. Just know that I see the emptiness inside you. I see the fears that you have. I see not your inability, but your unwillingness to face up to your own ideological inconsistencies and intellectual dishonesties. I see it. So you can look at the dumb Christian and you can, Jordan Peterson's a dumb person's idea of a smart person. You can do that all day long. We know you. We know who you are. It's just that the real intellectuals that used to dwell among you have come around to the obvious. And that's the place that, in the words of that intellectual Mr. Huxley, that's the place that we never left. Welcome home, Sparky. I'm going to close with a prayer real quick. And again, I appreciate you guys. I really, really appreciate you guys because it took, 4 attempts to finally get through this thing. And I think we made it through with very minimal difficulty on this last one. So we took it on faith. We took it on faith. But thank you guys. Lord God, I thank you. I thank you for these men and women who have chosen to take it on faith, that I will offer them the truth to the best of my ability. And at the very least, I'm going to give them an interesting opinion or two to think about. I thank you for the gift that you've given me to communicate these ideas. I give you the gift. I thank you for the gift that you have given me to express these things in easily digestible bits. I give you thanks for bringing me home to the faith so I could put these gifts to work for the kingdom, Lord. After so many years of aggrandizing myself and thinking myself a hell of a lot higher on the food chain than I was. Wearing that sickness like a badge of honor, Lord. I apologize. But I thank you for bringing me home so I can put this to work for the kingdom. I thank you for the great men and occasional great women that you put in my path to keep me level and moving forward on this journey. I thank you for the blessing that you've given me here to put me in this place. And I look forward to watching that divine plan unfold, not just in my life, but in everyone's. This ability to learn what the next step is that you have in mind for my life. As always, thy will, not mine, be done. For the people who are hurting, Lord, for the people who are doubting, for the people who just don't know what to make of it all, I ask that you give them the ears to hear and pull the scales from their eyes. For those of us who are out here, who are walking the path, help us to see when we've got an opportunity to bring somebody home. We know we got a fight coming, Lord. We know we got a fight coming. Let us meet the enemy head to head, knuckles up, and give us the steel in our spines to finish the job the way that you've laid out. Pray these things in the name of the risen Christ, whom I ever serve. Amen. Again, I thank you guys, man. I thank you guys very much for being here. I'm going to pass that digital collection plate around. Still another week or two before I get a paycheck, I think. But I'm going to pass that digital collection plate around to you guys. If you guys want to drop something in, I'm on PayPal, I'm on Cash App, I'm on Venmo, I'm on Facebook Pay, all that good stuff. It's not a real big deal because, as I said, this is primarily a labor of love, but every little bit helps, and it's always just nice. And I appreciate the guys who are very, very consistent with that. You know who you are. Thank you very much, man. Because you guys are not only supporters of the program, supporters of the message, you are reminders that I'm not that lone voice out here in the wilderness. And that's very validating. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for that. Going to go out with some Clutch, Fortunate Son, best version of that song that's ever been done. I don't give a damn what anybody says. If you can't kick down, that's cool. We're still living in a Biden economy reluctantly for a couple of years. Here's what you can do. Spread the word. Bring a friend next time. Send them a copy of the replay. And let them know, man, there's a fat, toothless cripple out here. There's a crane operator with some opinions. He likes to get on rant and rave every Sunday for a couple hours. Maybe you'll dig it. Turn them onto the program. Here's what you can do for yourself. Not just for me, but yourself. As the mighty, mighty Stone likes to say, hashtag live the three. Live the three. What do you think about live the three? I'm talking about the three-pronged directives, boys and girls. Signal to noise ratio is all screwed up. It's all jacked up. They'll try to bury you with the noise. You got to be that signal to break through the noise. They try to tell you that all there is darkness. They'll try to bury you with the darkness. Dehumanize, demoralize, emasculate you with the darkness. You have got to be that light to punch through the darkness, which leads me to the third rule, the iron rule, the final rule, the prime directive. You have got to be strength in a world full of weakness. I'm not just talking this kind of strength. You got to be strong here and here, here. Sometimes even here, man. Because I'll let you in on a little secret. Without strength, nothing else matters. Without strength, you're not going to be able to punch that signal through the noise. You won't have the guts to get through it without strength. Without strength, you're not going to be able to carry that light through the darkness, let alone punch through the other side and bring other people to the light. So strength above all, man. When you pray for those three things: strength, clarity, and discernment. Because like we're seeing here, everything is an act of faith on one level or another. The tools of the deceiver are out there. They're working against you all the time. You got to be sharp. You got to stay sharp. Carpenter's got your back. Boss man's got the plan. Live that plan. Just saying, thy will not mine be done. Live that. And even if you don't believe yet, live as if God existed. See the impact that makes on your life. Appreciate y'all being here, man. God bless y'all. Thank you so much. I'm the Reverend. That is the gospel. See you next Sunday. God willing, of course. Love y'all, man. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Peace.